Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Harsh Reality. And before we get into the show, let's start. Let's. I just want to thank everybody who prayed for a good friend of ours, friend of the show, and a friend of mine in real life, Ray Julio, for during his surgery, during his brain surgery, and his family will. And we do appreciate the people still praying for him because let's hope he can make a full recovery. That's why. And the sooner the better. So please keep him and his family in your thoughts. And that would be very much appreciated. Also, I did post a GoFundMe link for another dear friend of ours, and of course my business partner, Scott Ryan Saunier, who is going through his own issues. So please share the link out. If you can donate, please do. If you can't, share it out. That's fine. And in the meanwhile, let's get right into it with story time. Once upon a time, there was a man who was very. There was a man. Well, I remember once upon a time, there was a man who may or may not have been, a well-known live streamer or a online personality or whatever. And for some reason, he couldn't get over his ex-girlfriend. It's someone he dated for about 5 years. And because he was so upset with how his situation ended with her, supposedly she cheated on him or whatever, I don't really know or care. But the bottom line is, he was so obsessed with this lady. Even though nobody knew who she was, nobody cared about her, nobody could even tell you her name, let alone what she looked like. Yet, all he would do is keep posting about how much of a skank she was, how horrible she was, how terrible she was, and everything else, to where for years, to where he was just obsessed with constantly posting about her, even though he was the one with the following and she was the one no one even knew, to the point where she got so sick and tired of the nonsense, she started posting. She started dropping receipts about what happened during the relationship, what happened with this family, and what happened with this relation, what happened with their family, and everything else in between. And instead of realizing what he did was wrong, or instead of, I don't know, stop crying about her publicly after a year, he just kept doing it for a long time. To where one day he found out that people he couldn't stand knew about the most humiliating moment of his daughter's life, to where certain people were posting about it on his page, to the point where instead of just blocking them or pretending it didn't happen, he posted about other people trolling him about the most humiliating moment of his daughter's life. And of course, 10 days later, all over his social media, and of course 10 days later, his daughter committed suicide. I mean, it was a drug overdose, you know, laced, it was cocaine laced with fentanyl. But let's be honest, let's be honest. Most women commit suicide via drug overdoses. I'm sorry, most suicides committed by women are done via drug overdoses. Statistically speaking, it's not an opinion; it's a fact. that most women who do end up most women who do commit suicide, it's done through overdose. And we know the person I'm story of the person I'm talking about. So it really doesn't matter. And for the ones who don't, we'll call them. Well, you'll see it in the comments later. Let me make sure I'm sharing this out. And for the ones who don't get it, they won't. But let's be honest. It's about a man. It's the same guy who claims that everyone else is obsessed with him when he's the one who couldn't get over his obsession with his ex. If he was able to get over his obsession with his ex, his daughter would still be alive. And that man is known as Bill Bunting. But I don't really bring this up because to shame the man, even though he shamed himself. And I don't bring it up because it shows you the error of his ways, even though he's demonstrated that numerous times. I mean, you challenge me to a fight. You say you're gonna make me bleed. You're gonna kill me. You're gonna do all these things. And when I ask you when you're gonna show up here and do that, you just run away. But I don't really care about any of that because at the end of the day, his true colors have already been revealed. And more importantly, it goes to show you the dangers of obsession. You see, being obsessed with a goal is a beautiful cause. Being obsessed with your work, being obsessed with working or getting the job done when at your place of business or whatnot, if done properly, can be a beautiful thing. But being obsessed with your past traumas to the point of no return will do nothing but cause more danger, cause more trauma, cause more horrific situations. But the fact of the matter is that if someone but the fact of the matter is this and this only. If being able to determine, I made a post yesterday, and because of this and because of other things, when I hear the phrase, "Oh, you're obsessed with me. You're obsessed. You obsessed. You obsessed. You obsessed." First of all, if you're a teenage girl and you sound like that, while it is befitting to the gender, it is very cringeworthy. But if you're a 60-year-old man and you sound like that, that's just horrific. It's really it's very emasculating. But that's neither here nor there. The real issue I bring that up is because I did make a post about how if someone just because someone knows something about you does not mean they're obsessed. And went along those lines. I mean, just because you're an open book and you're easy to read does not mean they're obsessed with you. It just means you're not the sharpest tool in the shed. And the problem is we do have a brain drain in this community, in whatever that community is, the truther, critical thinker, researcher community, where if people can't even find out the truth about the ones closest to them, then how do you expect to be taken seriously when you're talking about certain topics about what's going on in DC or London or the Vatican or anything else or outer space or anything else in between? How can someone look at you and say, "Hey, I understand I don't know anything about the people in my life, but I'll tell you everything about what happens with politicians in DC." Where are the critical thinking skills? Where are they located at? And I guess we could do another story time about a girl who's really not anything special, but she is someone who at least on Facebook or in the messenger chats, pretends to have a high level of confidence in abilities and attributes she does not have, which is kind of what we talked about on Thursday's show with Miss Jackie Hyde. And this girl we're talking about is someone who thinks she's special, someone who thinks she's hot, someone who thinks she's a dime piece, someone who thinks she's high level, and all these other things on Facebook. When in reality, she's none of those things. Because if she was, she wouldn't be struggling to get away from a relationship. Number two, she wouldn't need some random guy to create a messenger chat for her to feel special. And number three, more importantly, well, you would be more popular than me, at the minimum. So, and number four, you'd be living the high life just for your appearance. And the crazy part is, I remember one time I tagged her on a post. She was someone who claims that, that claims to care about women's rights and all that other stuff. But when I tagged her on a post, she didn't say anything. And she's someone who praises loyalty but has no issue stabbing people in the back. But I'm not going to mention her name because it doesn't really matter and it's an old story. But why do I bring that up? Well, the problem is in Western society, especially in the U.S., there is an issue with American exceptionalism where people have high ability, where high confidence, such high confidence in abilities they do not have. And the problem is that can also be a very deadly combination. History is full of people. History is full of people who have literally lost everything in their lives because of their obsessions and because of their overconfidence. Extreme overconfidence in abilities they do not have. You could be overconfident and cocky and arrogant and any of that if you have abilities to back that up. If you're someone who can't really do anything outside of remove people from a troll chat, not even troll chat, remove people from a chat, you have nothing. You have nothing. If you're someone who needs someone to create a troll chat, to create a group chat on your behalf to feel special, then you're not special. And if you're someone who's supposedly attractive, but you can't raise enough money to get away from your significant other, then you're really not that special. And I'm not saying this because I think I'm great or some sort of anything. I'm not. But I'm not trying to be. Never said I was. Well, not anymore, at least. Those days are over. But I bring it up because, again, history is full of people who have literally suffered. Whether it's a horrible death, bad things happening to their bad things happening to loved ones, bad things happening to them outside of death, or outside of, their families, just because they couldn't get out of their own way. And I don't think enough people understand that you have to be a certain way to get things. You have to be a certain way in life in order to progress, in order to get better, in order to better yourself. I mean, humility is key, especially when that's all you have. I mean, you have to understand how the world is. You have to understand how the world is at this point in order to dream of a better world. Otherwise, you have no basis to. Otherwise, you have no idea where to begin. And that's another thing I've noticed. I mean, while I notice the fact that, and the thing I've noticed in life is if you can't talk about someone or something, that's who usually controls you. And that's when you know it's the truth, most of the time. Not all the time. Sometimes it's just nonsense. Like the fact of the matter is that it's 2024 and people still don't understand that the clot shot, that the donut experiment is still deadly. Like, I mean, it's one thing if people had to get it once or twice for their, jobs or whatever, because that's just life. But for people to constantly get boosted because of it, it's just insanity. It really is. But everyone here watching that knows that, so it doesn't even matter all that much. But what I do find insane is that, like, you could tell who runs the world if you're not allowed to, you know, mention a group of people. You know, and then one thing I've noticed is that everyone talks about this person having privilege or this group of people having privilege or anything else, but at the end of the day, not everyone gets to experience privilege. Privilege is like true love. Yes, it exists, but not everyone gets to experience it, and that's life. And it's just rather fascinating to seeing how evolved or devolved everything's become in the last decade or so. I mean, we live in a world where that were considered conspiracy theories a decade ago have just become proven fact. It's rather strange. I mean, look at what happened with Diddy's arrest. Yes, obviously he's a sacrificial lamb to keep the machine going, but it's still rather fascinating how that was a known secret for years, and yet people really didn't say anything about it until 2023. So that's just something we know of. We need some new conspiracy theories because if all the old ones have become proven true, then well, the major ones at least, then I don't know what else is left. So, and on that note, this has been another edition of the Harsh Reality. This is Harsh Metz. I'll be you. But life is harsh. Must live it. And sometimes you have to do what you're afraid of doing the most. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your beautiful Monday afternoon.